Namaskar, hello and welcome to CIET-NCERT's live phone-in special program of Nishtha 3.0 FLN. My name is Tanvi Khurana and you're watching us right now on PM eVidya channel number 1 to channel number 12. And before going any further, let's understand what exactly Nishtha is. Nishtha is a national initiative for school heads and teachers' holistic advancement. And what exactly is Nishtha 3.0 FLN? Well, FLN stands for Foundational Literacy and Numeracy, and it is an integrated training for teachers and school heads at pre-primary and primary stage of school education. So if you have any questions regarding this particular day, because we are going to discuss the course number 11 titled Integration of ICT in Teaching, Learning and Assessment. Every month we discuss certain courses. Last month we discussed the course number 9 and 10 in English and in Hindi. And this month we are taking up course number 11 and 12 again in English and in Hindi. So today we are discussing course number 11 in English titled let me tell you again, it's Integration of ICT in Teaching, Learning and Assessment. If you have any questions, any queries, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our number is 8800440559. If you want to email us, then the email ID would be nishtha.ncertgovin. You're watching us live on PM eVidya channel number 1 to 12 and also on our YouTube channel NCERT Official. In the live chat box, you can write down your questions, queries and share them with us. We'll be taking your questions towards the end of our program. And we have two resource persons in our studio with us. So let me welcome Professor Indu Kumar. Welcome, ma'am.
Namaskar. Thank you, Anvi.
Ma'am is from Department of ICT and Training Division, CIET-NCERT, and along with her we have Dr. Angel Rathnabai. Welcome, ma'am. Ma'am is an assistant professor in Educational Technology, Department of ICT and Training Division, CIET-NCERT, New Delhi. So I welcome both our resource persons for this program, and let's begin this program. And I would like to ask my first question to Indu ma'am only. Ma'am, what exactly is this course all about? What are we going to learn in this program?
So that's a basic question as far as this particular course is concerned, which is integration of technology or ICT in teaching, learning and assessment for foundational literacy and numeracy. So foundational literacy and numeracy is one of the very important deliverable as far as NEP 2020 is concerned. It has to be taken up in a mission mode because proficiency in foundational literacy and numeracy impacts all future learning of our students. So under Nipun Bharat mission, foundational literacy and numeracy has been taken up as a mission which we need to achieve by 2025. So that is about foundational literacy and numeracy, the importance of foundational literacy and numeracy. And in today's session, we are going to discuss the following. You can see on the PPT. Next slide, please. So we will be discussing technology and foundational literacy and numeracy, how technology is relevant for foundational literacy and numeracy. Then what is information and communication technology, that is ICT. Why ICT for foundational literacy and numeracy? How does ICT support the teaching learning process? Then how to integrate technology in education, which is very, very essential to be discussed in this particular session and in this particular course. So we need to understand for that the nature of content, the context of our learner, methods of teaching and learning, and then technology tools and resources for to be integrated in foundational literacy and numeracy. And we will also be discussing some of the safety concern which are relevant for foundational learners, because when we are on the cyber spaces, it is very, very essential to understand the safety concerns as well. So this will be the entire summary in nutshell for this particular session. So let us start from the technology and FLN, why technology is important for FLN. As I have already discussed that it is one of the important concern of NEP 2020 to implement foundational literacy and numeracy in a mission mode. And to implement it, technology can play a very vital role, because technology has nowadays pertained almost every stage and walk of our life. As you can see the bullet point on the screen also, young children today are growing up in a world which not only contains technology but also is being increasingly shaped by information and communication technology, that is ICT. And I have already mentioned the third bullet point, which is about the concern of NEP 2020 for foundational literacy and numeracy, and it has to be implemented by 2025. So it is very essential to understand the potential of technology to be utilized for building foundational literacy and numeracy skills. So for that, it is very, very important to understand what is ICT, the very meaning of ICT, what do we understand by ICT. So as you can see on the image which is shown on the screen, what ICT refers to. So ICT refers to creating. ICT makes it possible to create a lot of learning resources, a lot of learning content. So it leaves a possibility of creating something. Then whatever we are creating, we need to store it also at some places. We store things on the storage devices, but in case of ICT, we store the whatever creation we have done on portals and apps. So storing is another potential of ICT. Then whatever we create and store, there is always a possibility of restoring that content. We can get back the content we have stored whenever a need arises to retrieve those content. So retrieving is also possible. Then manipulating the content is also possible with ICT. So I will give here an example what do I mean by manipulation. For example, if we take a photograph using our mobile camera, so I will take by this example I will I can explain the entire process. So we click a photograph. By clicking the photograph, we are creating a resource, we are creating a photograph. Then it gets stored in the gallery of our mobile phone. So that is how we are also storing it. So whenever we want to get it back for any use, we can just retrieve it. And if we find that the technical quality of the photograph is somehow not up to the mark, we can always have a possibility of manipulating it. We can edit it, we can increase the light, we can change the color contrast, and we can also add some captions to the photograph we have created. So like that we can also manipulate. ICT has a potential to manipulate the content that we have created. We can always send the content, which is the fifth potential of ICT shown on the image. Then we can also receive. Through our messaging softwares also, we send content and we receive content also using the potential of internet. So that is about the meaning of ICT, what ICT refers to. I think I am clear, and if any questions regarding the meaning of ICT, what ICT refers to, later on we can take up the questions as well. So now let us move on to the next point of it. Why technology? Why technology, and what are the potential of technology in education? So to take up these 2 points, I will request Dr. Angel to move forward and elaborate these 2 points in details. Why technology and what is the potential of technology in education? Dr. Angel.
So it's a very nice question to ask ourselves. Do we really need technology for foundation literacy and numeracy? Many teachers, when we discuss with teachers, teachers used to tell, when we teach pre-primary and primary kids, it's very important to have interaction with students. So many teachers feel that like there is no need for technology at all, because as a teacher, I'll be able to teach the content in a very interactive manner. That's very true that the teacher can really interact with students the way they are, and you can always have a connect. But is it really required to use technology? The question also has its own answer, because there are many things that we will not be able to do with ourselves, right? So some of the bulleted points are here, but instead of going bullet by bullet, I would like to take some examples and elaborate on this point, why really we need technology, right? So many times, like for example, let's take a primary class where we are talking about the parts of the plants. So very simple thing, if you want to teach the parts of the plant, is to take the children to the garden, show them the parts in the garden itself a plant, and teach them these are the parts of the plant. But when you wanted to show everything outside, external thing could be shown, like a stem, a kind of a leaf, flower, fruit. But what about the root? So we'll not be able to show the root as such. So sometimes what we do, we pluck the plant and then show them this is what is the root about, right? But we also know that different plants have different types of roots. So sometimes we wanted to show different roots. So one side we say don't pluck plants, and other side we also pluck the plants to show the roots. So at this case, when there is something that cannot be really visualized, or that cannot be experienced with our physical interaction, at that point, let's bring technology inside. It's not mandatory that technology has to be used because it is available, but we need to understand whether it is really available and whether it is really going to make a change and then use it. Sometimes we need to create situation for students for inquiring or exploration as well. So for that cases, many times we are not able to take the children to give a real exposure, direct exposure to variety of animals, right? We teach about animals. If I am like in a place where I have only seen some domestic animals, I have never seen a zoo if there is no zoo in my city. So a child will not have the direct experience of seeing an animal like tiger, lion and all. So there is a need that we need to motivate students, and also we need to bring interest. We are actually we need to take them to trips like field trips to zoo. But keeping in situations now, there are many times that we are not able to really take them. So in such cases, there is a possibility that we can give virtual experience to a child to take them to a virtual tour to a zoo. Like for example, the Anna Zoo, which is at Aringer Anna Zoo, which is at Chennai, has its own virtual tour where a child can just click on the animal, and the child can have a real experience of seeing animal, what is the animal doing at that time live. So that gives a better interest to a child and better exploration. So they'll also see the movements of animal in reality rather than just watching in the video. So that's one of the reasons that we need technology to provide opportunities for learners where which is not possible to be provided with naked eyes or with a direct experience. And the use of technology can also allow learners to play multiple roles. How that it also happens in the physical classroom, any activity which is planned by the teacher can also allow a student to play multiple roles. But right now, some situations have put down like there is no possibility of a physical contact, right? There are schools where there is no possibility of conducting an activity because due to the restriction of the space, where we are really not able to collaborate with different places. So that is where the gateway of through internet helps children to interact. Now we are all aware that like there are a lot of programs that are brought by Government of India to share the cultural aspects between the states. Many times like born and brought up in one state, we do not know what is the culture of other states. We do not have an understanding of the language of other states. So the collaboration is possible when there is the possibility of connecting with each other through internet. So that is where technology helps in interacting among children. And we have all been able to witness this during the pandemic time. Though physically we were not able to connect the children, but through Zoom, through Google Meet, children were kept on connected. There was learning happening. Instructor role was played because one student was able to help another student as well. And also technology gives possibility to nurture creativity. As we are all aware, when creativity has to be nurtured, there is an individual attention required to appreciate the person, to give feedback to the person. But wherein due to the classroom side, sometimes a teacher is not able to be physically present there throughout with the child. So there are technology that gives input for a child when they do it. So this is one of the way where there can be a peer group connected together, where there can be more of mentors connected together. So that's how technology helps in again. And also it allows for self-learning and independent thinking. So I would like to just talk about one scenario here, how really this has been seen. So one of the software is Touchpaint. This is a tool which can be used for creating stamp-based art. We all have seen, like, there will be stamps kind of thing when a child just have that stamp and just press it on a ink and then just press it on a paper. You get the image of that stamp. So this particular software is similar to that, where a child can use stamping in digital mode and create its own artifact. So in one of the classrooms of class 2, they were told to create a undersea environment. Okay, so that is a creative activity. They have learned about habitats where the children are expected to create. So when they started creating, after the activity was over, we could observe what the students have done. Out of 40 students, except one child, all of them were able to create really an underwater scenario. Only one child has placed a bird there. So it very clearly shows there is a problem with the children's understanding. Can I have the previous slide itself, please? Thank you. When the child was able to, the child has understood from the book like what is the habitat of underwater sea is all about, but the child was able to visualize and create on its own using the software. And when we were seeing the 39 students, when they were able to create fishes, they were able to play seahorse, we could see the children have made like 2 big fish and 2 small fishes. So we asked the children why you have put these 2 fishes along with that with small fishes. Immediately the children could say that, madam, like we have learned that everyone will have a family. So fish also will have a family. That is why we are able to, we have drawn like this. So the children who have learned about the concept of family in English in class 1 was able to apply that experience into a EVS class in class 2. Their learning was able to be applied in the opportunity which was provided. And they were really playfully, they were creating it. But what we could also see is how self-learning has happened. They are able to not only apply, and we also saw some of the children that there were 2 fishes in which 1 fish is larger than the other. So we asked, why is 1 fish larger than the other? So they said, like in a family, father is big, so the big fish represents father. So one child alone changed immediately and said, in my home, the big fish represents my mother because she takes care of me everything. So the concept of gender, what we talk about, a cross-cutting concern which has to be integrated, was not integrated by the teacher, but it was integrated. Their understanding was able to be integrated by participation of students itself. That's what the one of the bullet points speaks about, increasing access and participation. When you give such activities, there is more participation by students. And we also could see at the end, like one child has put only 2 big fishes with 1 small fish. When we asked why only 1 small fish, the child said, I watched an advertisement which says that we 2 and for us 1. The child was able to apply the concept of population control when even the child was able to draw fishes. So this is how a child is able to communicate the child's understanding through the creative work. The child was able to give feedback to each other collaboratively. Their thought process of what is gender could be reflected through one activity, and this is how technology can support. As we move forward, we know that technology has many potentials. If we see in the next slide, we can see the potentials of technology, which talks about technology can help in increasing our efficiency. We may be really good in teaching the content. We may feel that I can dance, I can sing and teach the content. But if there is a content that cannot reach to a child, technology can bring in. It also facilitates skill for development. Why? How we say about skill development? We all know even 6 months child can even now watch YouTube. It doesn't mean that the child knows technology. It is just by observation the child is able to replicate the behavior. But if you see that the coordination of fingers, that's also a skill. There is a development skill which is happening there, which is already embedded into it. And technology can help in enhancing quality of learning, where we are going to see some of the tools in the next slides, how this quality of learning can be improved through use of technology. And also it will be able to improve, enhance the quality of teaching. It doesn't replace the teaching by teacher, but it can enhance the teacher's potential to deliver the content. As we saw in the thing, which I'm not able to show directly, I can use the thing of development. And it also enables sustaining the lifelong learning. It's like there is a lot of resource which we will be going to discuss, that there are a lot of digital resources which is available, which makes access more availability, and which also gives connect to a student to the content, rather than just hiding them or bounding them into the four walls of the school. And it's not just alone, it also advances and advocates community linkages, because it is no more like I learn only from teacher, I can learn from an elder, I can learn from a neighbor, I can learn from a child in the other school. So that's a potential of ICT. So with this all potential, we can establish that ICT can really enhance our teaching and learning. So if we are really into it, how do we really integrate? So if we move to the next slide, there are certain parameters which we need to think about while integrating. So I request Professor Indu Kumar to elaborate on how content becomes an important parameter when we think about integrating technology.
So whenever we are talking about integrating technology with education, content becomes a very, very important parameter for the same, because without content we cannot move further, be it primary, foundational, secondary, senior secondary. So content is very, very important. So teachers need to know how to analyze the content that they are dealing with. So we have four kind of content, and we need to have the knowledge about each kind of content that we encounter and we deal with as teachers. So there is factual content, and we also need to have knowledge about that content, and that factual knowledge also need to be imparted to students. So as far as the nature of content is concerned, we have factual content, then we have conceptual content, then we have procedural content, and then we have metacognitive content. So these are four types of content, or we have the nature of content is of these four kinds. Like if we are dealing with the factual content, an example is the different states and the capital cities of states and UTs of India. So these are factual content. So we need to have a list of the states and UTs and their capital cities. We can also have a map on a digital map depicting all these state UTs and their capital. So this is the fact. For the concept, I will be giving you an example like earth is spherical. So, it is a fact also, but a child don't see earth as spherical. So, it need to be imbibed or learnt as the conceptual level that earth is spherical. So, for that we need to integrate some digital content which depicts a 3D image or 3D augmented reality content of earth as spherical. So, there are so this is an example of conceptual content. Then a procedural content. In our day to day life, we encounter a lot of content which is procedural, or we need to make student understand about different processes. Like in our body also, we have different systems, respiratory system, digestive systems, and there is a procedure by which digestion occurs or we respirate. But we cannot see all these processes happening by our naked eyes. We need to augment some content, we need to integrate some augmented reality content, or some content which makes it possible to have 3D visualization of these processes which occur in our body. So, we have a number of apps in the Play Stores which makes it possible to see these processes like procedure of digestion and the procedure of respiration. So, then we have metacognitive content also. Whatever as per the goals of learning, building socio-emotional intelligence or socio-emotional knowledge is also one of the very important concern that we need to take up as far as the imparting knowledge among children are concerned. So, there are some content which need to be understood at the socio-emotional level, and for that we need to adopt such methodologies which make it possible to impart such content in a meaningful way with appropriate examples. I will ask you to watch a small short Egyptian movie for this. The name of the movie is The Other Pair. So, if you watch that movie, you will understand how socio-emotional learning can take place by watching relevant content and having discussion on that. So, understanding content that way is very, very important, and we need to analyze the content, analyze the textbooks, or analyze the reference material which we have to understand where we are encountering factual knowledge, where we are encountering conceptual knowledge, where we are encountering procedural knowledge, and where we are encountering metacognitive knowledge or metacognitive content. So, this was one of the primary parameters to integrate ICT, and because accordingly we can integrate ICT to make the content more comprehensible for the students and also interesting for the students. So, later on during the course of presentation, I will be showing you example of some of the content which are specifically made for foundational literacy and numeracy, and we will also be discussing some of the tools, and you will be able to understand this particular parameter in more details. So, the second parameter for integrating ICT is context of the learner. So, I would request Dr. Angel to elaborate upon this second parameter for integrating ICT. Dr. Angel.
Very rightly said, the very basic and essential parameter that has to be considered is the context. only based on the type of content which we are going to bring into the classroom. The selection of tools and resources has to be made. As we move on to the next slide, it is about the second parameter which talks about the context. So can I have the next slide, please? So when we see here, when we talk about context, it has three things in, it is under a context. One is learner by itself. Who is your learner? So that's a question we need to have in mind when we are thinking about planning ICT integration. As we are now dealing with pre-primary and primary kids, because our session is more focused on how ICT is going to be integrated for teaching and learning of pre-primary and primary kids. Though pre-primary and primary is a kind of a broad category, we need to also think about certain aspects of the learners. Somehow you can see in this image that demographics of the person, cognitive skills, cognitive level of the child, physiological aspect of the child, affective domain of the child, and also socio-economic status of the child. These are some of the parameters of the learner that has to be considered while planning ICT pedagogy integration. For example, if we feel that in our classroom there are 40 children and there are 2 children who are visually challenged, so they have some kind of an issue with their physiological growth. So that is where we have certain children with visual challenge in our classroom. So when we plan of integrating technology into our classroom, when we cannot say like, now observe the color on the screen. So if you are going to say such statements using some videos, then we also should have an alternative plan how you are going to take the same experience to the children with that visual challenge, right? So whenever we are going to use digital, like for example, if I have planned to use a video in my classroom to explain the process of plant growth, okay, where it's more of audio is there. If I have a children with having hearing impairment, so there is a need that the video has to also have sign language in it so that the child's need will be addressed. So while selecting the technology or the digital resource, it's very important to keep the parameter of the learner here. And it's also very important to know about the cognitive level of a child. We all have learned, there are a lot of theories of learning which we have studied in psychology, which says that there is a level of growth in each child. There is a level of understanding in each child. For example, in one of the classrooms, the teacher was giving an experience of coloring in a sheet. And when you use the app, it is an app called Qver. So the teacher used those Qver sheets for coloring. And after coloring, the teacher used the mobile, scanned the picture, and it's an augmented reality app. So the visual which was there in paper became a 3D. A child who has got this experience, a class 2 child who has got this experience, after 2-3 days came back to a teacher saying that, sir, when I could see with your mobile any picture, the picture started becoming to move, the animals in the picture started giving sound. So can I use your mobile and see my grandmother's picture so that she can start talking to me? He has lost his grandmother 2-3 years back. So the thing brings here is a child of class 12, cognitive level is only up to the level that the child is not in a position to understand the difference between virtual and real. So when we are using such tools, digital tools, which are really effective, it brings a lot of difference in the classroom. But it's very important to also consider about the learner's perspective. And it's also very important, if we see now the children who are all the time addicted to mobile, now we have brought in a habit of now learning through technology. Like during pandemic, all the children are in Zoom, all the children are in Google Meet. Now when they come back to the classroom, we are going to continue using technology in the classroom. The way a child should appreciate each other, the way you have to smile at each other, the way you need to encourage each other in a physical environment, there are a lot of researchers that say that's getting lost. So there is very important aspect that we need to think about the effective domain, whether the child is liking such a tool or not. So I'll just bring, like, I would quote one of the experience of one of the awardee teacher. This awardee teacher was using this video conferencing tool during this pandemic for teaching the content. So he was with class 1 students, and as we all aware, there are a lot of features in your video conferencing tools. So one such feature is like which you can mask yourself with virtual face. So which can make your face to look like a cartoon face. So usually our perception is children like cartoons. So this teacher, what he did is, he just, while taking the class, he just suddenly changed his face to a cartoon face. The next moment, all the children started crying in the class. He was not aware why the children are crying. So he started asking, what happened to you? Why are you all crying? Children started saying, my teacher has got some disease like corona, which changed the face. Children were not in a position to understand that the teacher is changing a mask. The children got affected thinking that, like, the teacher has got a disease, so the face has changed. So this is what happens. So when we are using technology, we need to be very careful about the learners. It is not because technology is available with us, but it should be suitable to the learner. The second thing which we also need to think about context is the infrastructure, the facilities. If we have in a classroom only 2 mobiles, can we choose technology which can be used through these 2 mobiles? If there is no internet connectivity in the classroom, we need to explore more of offline tools that can be used in the classroom. If I do not have a laptop or computer at all, then we should be ready to use technology like TV and radio to be used in the classroom. So context plays a very important role to make the selection of the tools. When this is the second strong parameter every teacher has to think about. When we move to the third parameter, and we move to the next slide, which talks about the third parameter, which is about the method of teaching. Can any tool be used to teach in any method? That's a question which we need to ask ourselves. So as we are listening, when we wanted to choose any digital tools or resources, the very first thing we need to think about is, for this content, what is the suitable resource? Second thing which we need to think about is, for this learner, if I have to teach this content in this particular context, what would be the right method of teaching? So after technology's intervention, if you see, there is a difference in the classroom. It has become more silent instead of making more interactive. It has stopped lot of interaction among children sometimes, because until and otherwise the teacher chooses and plans the classroom in an appropriate manner, the technology will become a stopper than an enabler. So it's very important that we need to make a means of blend. What does we mean means of blend? It should be mean of blend with resources. It's not always a teacher. I can have a single video as a resource person. It's not a teacher sharing a resource and actually give the content. Not just my presentation, but all the variety of resources, not always one resource. A single content can be supported with an image, like for example, the one I took, parts of the plant. I can show a picture of the plant, then I can show how to plug a plant as a video, which can also show the roots inside. So it's a mixture of, it's a blend of various resources to ensure that the learning happens in a proper manner. And if you see, like, there should be a blend of competencies. Many times what we do is, we only think about the learning outcomes of the content. But if you see any child who is able to just switch on Zoom to join the class, incidentally, there are a lot of technology skills happening there. So whenever we plan technology integration, we need to think about all the other competencies other than the curricular-based competencies. And when we also talk about blend, it can be variety of transaction mode. Are we directly interacting, or am I going to interact little online and also continue offline? So there is a possibility that we can have our teaching methods in a blended mode. That is where all these topics of flip learning, where a child learns in the home and then they come for discussion in the classroom, comes in. So that transaction modes can be thought about by us. Also, when we think about various methods, so I would also like to bring up this example. A teacher who wants to use a keyword sheet for teaching various types of animals initially can give the papers to a children to make coloring work. So where the very first level is a child is the children are participating in activity based learning, where they are just drawing and coloring in the papers which are given to them. More of physically they are engaged there. Second, when the teacher brings in a mobile app to just scan the picture, there is a technology oriented method which is coming in, where the children are able to explore by scanning the picture using a mobile app. They can explore what is the sound of the animal. They can explore what does the animal eat. All these are into exploration. So first we started with an activity-based method, moved on to an exploration. Then the teacher can continue with discussion. So if you see here, there is 3 different methods involved, even though it is only one tool they are using in the classroom. So like this, whenever we are going to plan methods, we should always have a blend of different approaches. But 2 questions that has to be kept in mind is, how does ICT really support in implementing this method? The second question is, there are various innovative and integrated methods. Which one could be selected for this particular subject piece? Sometimes when you teach mathematics, you have to use induction. So when you want to use induction, you need to have a tool that will help you to teach through induction. So the third parameter which we need to keep in mind is methods of teaching learning. So till here, when you have decided to teach a content, first of all, we are analyzing the content, trying to find out which is the for this content, for the appropriate learner and context, what is the appropriate method. The last parameter is on the technology itself. When we talk about technology, there are 2 parts. One is digital resources, another is digital tools. So let us try to understand what all the available digital resources are there and how selection of digital resources has to be taken care. Over to Indu ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Angel. So, it is very, very important to understand how to integrate the various kind of learning resources which are available. So, can we move on to the slide to see the variety of resources that we have? So, here you can see the variety of resources, and these are audio, video, interactives, animations, simulations, immersive technologies. So, contents based on immersive technologies, which are augmented reality content, mixed reality content, and virtual reality content. Apart from this, we can also have text, digital text as resources, then images. So, these are various categories of resources which can be obtained and integrated into our teaching learning plan. So, Diksha has this possibility of housing all such kinds of resources on the foundational literacy and numeracy vertical that we have created on Diksha to curate all sorts of resources on foundational literacy and numeracy. Let me also tell you here that these resources are aligned to 3 developmental goals for foundational literacy and numeracy, and these developmental goals are: children maintain good health and well-being. So, it is very, very important for a foundational learner to maintain good health and also a sense of well-being. Then children become effective communicator. It is very, very important to have good communication skills so that they can achieve or derive linguistic skills in terms of reading, writing and speaking. So communication has to be intact for foundational literacy and numeracy. Then the third goal is children become involved learners and connect with their immediate environment. So it is very, very important to make student aware about their immediate environment, and aligned to all these developmental goals there are learning outcomes. Aligned to these learning outcomes are the digital resources that have been developed for foundational literacy and numeracy. So let me take you through the portal, Diksha portal, and the FLN vertical therein, where you can see all the learning resources for foundational literacy and numeracy. And on the screen you can also see the URL for obtaining for landing onto FLN page of Diksha, and the URL is diksha.gov.in. Let me take you through. Diksha.gov.in. So you will land onto this page. If we also add /fln.html, so you will directly land onto foundational literacy and numeracy page of Diksha, which is here visible on the screen. So because it is under Nipun Bharat Mission, so you can see here Nipun Bharat Mission. If you click here on the explore button, so let me reiterate the steps. So first we have to open our browser, whatever browser you are having, Internet Explorer, Firefox, or the Chrome. So you have to open your browser, then you have to type diksha.gov.in, which is the URL for obtaining resources on Diksha and also FLN resources on Diksha. So you will land onto this page. So by clicking explore, so I am clicking on explore, so you will land onto this page which shows Nipun Bharat Mission. So here you can see different resources which are for documents which are for Nipun Bharat Mission. So you can see three bars here. Nipun Bharat document, if you click on to explore, so you will get the documents related to Nipun Bharat mission. So, so this is Nipun Bharat. You can obtain Nipun Bharat flipbook, Vidya Pravesh document, and credit and license information, and also you will get FLN mission document, which is visible on the screen. So under document you will get all these resources. So then you have Nipun mission videos here. If you click on to explore, so you can obtain the videos. So let me play Nipun Bharat anthem here, so that you get to know the what Nipun Bharat mission is about.
सीखने का बढ़ेगा, अब हर बच्चा निपुण बनेगा, अपना भारत देश बढ़ेगा, पढ़ा लिखा भारत निपुण नया भारत, पढ़ा लिखा भारत नूतन निपुण भारत, शिक्षित परिपूर्ण भारत, नूतन निपुण भारत, विद्या संपन्न इंडिया, निपुण सत्तमय इंडिया। निपुण भारत का सपना, सब बच्चे समझे भाषा और गणना।
So, this was about the spirit of Nipun Bharat mission and the importance of foundational literacy and numeracy in that context. So, let me again take you to the other resources which are there on this particular vertical of Diksha. Yeah. So, you can also see regional resources of regional workshops. We recently, Ministry of Education has recently organized workshops for implementation of the mission. So, all the resources, the state and UT's plans you can get here, all the presentation there. If you scroll down, you will get developmental goal wise e-content on the Diksha portal. So, you can see preschool 1, preschool 2, preschool 3, class 1, class 2 and class 3. So, if you click on to explore button, you will get developmental goal wise resources organized over here for all these classes. So, let me click on to explore below class 3. So, you can see the 3 developmental goals aligned to this particular class. So, I am clicking on to developmental goal 3 here. So, I have clicked on to developmental goal 3. So, you can see all the learning outcomes listed at the right hand side of the screen. So, these are all the learning outcomes aligned to class 3 developmental goal 3, and on the right hand side you can see key competencies of developmental goal 3 in case of class 3. So, by default you will get the very first resource as the key competencies aligned to a particular developmental goal. So, let me just click on to a particular learning outcome so that you can get to know how learning resources are aligned to a particular learning outcome. So, I am clicking on to EVS 6.3 here, EVS 6.3. Yeah, you can see here EVS 6.3, and you will get a drop down where assessment sheets, worksheets, infographics and other learning resources are listed for this particular learning outcome. Let me click on to a worksheet, and also let me read out the learning outcome, which is codified as EVS 6.3, identifies relationships with and among family members. So, let me click on to infographic first. So, here you can see a family tree of Rani, Shalini and Raju, depicting relationship with and among family members as depicted in the learning outcome aligned to this developmental goal. The learner identifies relationship with and among family members. So, this infographic caters to this learning outcome. So, let me now click on to an assessment sheet and worksheet related to this learning outcome. So, here is a worksheet. So this is the worksheet aligned to this learning outcome. So there are a lot of interesting activities which can be seen aligned to this particular learning outcome. Let me take you through a assessment sheet. So this is an interesting assessment sheet which is aligned to this learning outcome. So here also you can see interesting assessment activities listed here. So you can explore this on your own also to see the activities aligned to this learning outcome. Identifies relationships with and among family members. So now I am clicking on to learning outcome which is codified as EVS 6.1. So aligned to this learning outcome which is identifies simple observable features of leaves, trunks and barks of plants, animals and birds in immediate surroundings. So here also you can see worksheets, assessment sheets and infographic aligned to this learning outcome. So let me click on to some gamified assessment item which are interactives which you can see over here. Why it is not opening? Is the internet working? Just a moment. Let me just work it out. ऊपर स्क्रॉल करना है. ऊपर स्क्रॉल करना. So here you can see this gamified content. So you can see here a grid. So where children can identify some words related to this particular learning outcome. So that is it. Second wala. Yeah, so because of some internet issue, I think that is not opening. Let me take you through one example of infographic which is which relates to this learning outcome. So you can see here the learning outcome, the infographic aligned to this learning outcome. Identifies simple observable features, shapes, colors, textures, aroma of leaves, trunks and barks of plants, animals in their immediate surroundings. So leaves classified on the basis of shapes, then color and texture, and also other features which were mentioned in the learning outcome. So, apart from all these resources, there are a lot of bite-sized videos and gamified learning content which are there on Diksha. So, this was about the resources which are shown, which are housed on FLN vertical of Diksha. So, how to integrate all these resources is very important component to be understood. Let us move on to the slide. So, you can obtain all the resources from Diksha portal, but the method is not just to go on to the portal and show these digital resources. You can always integrate all these resources into your teaching learning plan. In case of infographic, you can to make your classroom environment print rich, you can take print of the infographics and display them on in the classroom of the learners you are dealing with. And you can also take print of the worksheets and ask student to work on the worksheets. And also you can show them bite-sized videos which are also there, small videos which are there. So, you can play a video and discuss with the student around what is depicted in the video. So, there are videos for teachers on the methodologies of teaching and learning, what methodologies to be adopted for teaching and learning, and also learners which are learner facing videos, which are learner facing videos, which learner can watch and have discussion around. So, this was about different kind of resources on FLN vertical of Diksha. So, there are a lot of tools also which are available to be integrated into the teaching learning plan in case of foundational learner. So, I would request Dr. Angel to elaborate upon various ICT tools which are there for integrating in the teaching learning plan for FLN, Foundational Literacy and Numeracy. Over to Dr. Angel.
Ma'am,
there are several.
Dr. Angel, just a gentle reminder, we have got last 11 minutes left for this conversation.
Yes, yes. I'm just toasting the time. Thank you for the reminder. I'll take a quick walk through. Can I just get the next slide, please? So I'll just take you a very quick walk through some of the tools that are freely available for teachers to use it offline, because most of the pre-primary and primary schools do not have internet connectivity. So I'm just going to show you 2-3 tools only, but in the video lesson which has been given as part of this module, there are a lot of tools which have been given. So whenever we think about tools, we should think, when we are selecting tools, it should be having the possibility to involve various senses. And many times we use games which are available in just downloading from Google Play Store, but we should select games also which supports educational content and also encourages children to still play and learn through this. And we should be very careful about choosing tools which really promotes violence or any stereotyping which is there. There are a lot of cartoons which actually has a strong stereotyped content in it. So we need to be very careful when we choose such tools. Even some of the teachers use Angry Bird to teach mathematics, but Angry Bird game itself brings an aggression with the child. So it should be very carefully chosen again. So when we take tools, it also should ensure that there is a collaboration and it supports teacher to integrate rather than it stands alone by itself, right? So these are some of the parameters which we need to keep in mind when we select any digital tool. So let's move ahead. Some of the digital tools, moving on to the next slide, some of the digital tools that are very useful for pre-primary and primary level. We have just put 5 of the tools on the screen. One is like called as Tux Paint, which I showed. So let me share my screen so that it's visible for you, so I can just take you through the slides. So Tux Paint is one of the tools where the student can create a lot. Hope my screen is getting visible. Right. So Tux Paint is a creative tool where a child can create on their own a lot of things, which will enable a child to create using their own tools.
Ma'am, we can't see your screen. We can see that, yes, now we can.
Yeah. Right. So if you see, this is the example which I was showing to you, that in the Tux Paint, like you can choose the stamps here, and children can create on their own whatever is being told to them. So for example, if a teacher student has to create a kind of an environment, like taking a new screen, they'll be able to select different environments from here, and it's just like very simple on a click. So there are a lot of stamps here which a child can, all based on the content which you are asking them to create, they will be able to create the content here. So it's just a click and then stamp. They can also resize the images, and they'll be able to create a lot of things in this particular place. So this is like a kind of a digital drawing tool that will help them to express a lot. The second tool which I would like to show you is, second tool which I would like to show you is Tux Math. Many times we know that, like when the children come to the primary classes, many times students do not have their background understanding of this subject itself. So Tux Math is a game where it allows you to have complete learning by playing games. So you can see here, so coming on to this games which I have shown, it talks about like whatever you wanted to use it, it talks about this math game can be played rather than being taught. So many times this can be used for reinforcement, this can be used for learning by playing and practicing the speed and all that. So this is another game called G Comprise, which has activities of numbers. When you click on this, you will come to know there are games based on numeration, arithmetic and mensuration. And also it has activities which are related to language. When you click on this alphabet, it talks about games which are based on letters, words and vocabulary. So there are several, like sometimes you may not be able to make the child to sit and hold their hand and tell the child to write. But you can see here it is by self-learning, the child can learn by himself or herself. So this is how self-learning games and activities can help children. So there are a lot of activities. There are 500 plus such activities in these tools. So we can always okay. So we can always use such tools, and then we can use it for integrating into the classroom learning purposes. So that is one thing like which we really need to do. There are several other games that can be used in our classroom teaching learning process, which are available for free. And these tools are all offline, which can be easily used. It's not just the tools that have to be played in computers. Even you have these tools available as mobile apps. So it's important is only to identify these games, customize it and give it to the children so that they move ahead. But there is very important thing is the safety of the children when we bring technology in. There are a few points which UNESCO has pointed out to be taken care by us when we talk about the safety concerns of the children. When we think about technology, let us not forget their physical activity, their interest, their involvement, their social skills. It's very important to think about that as well when we integrate in our classroom. We also need to be very clear about the content which we are giving to them. When we give this content, the content should not have anything that will spoil the mental health of the children. So that's very important for us, very, very important to think about it in our plan when we think about integrating technology in the classroom. And anything which is affecting the children's physical growth or physically, like over exposure to screen may affect their eyes. So we need to be very careful about that. And the last thing is never technology should displace other important learning and play activity. So we need to be very clear about these aspects when we think about using technology. The last point to conclude is, when we think about integrating technology, we need to have technology knowledge. We all have done our pedagogy and content, like because we have done some master degree, we have done pedagogical degree. So we are thorough with our content, thorough with our pedagogy, but we also need to improve the technology knowledge so that a right blend of content, technology and pedagogy can bring an effective classroom. For that, we have to be a self-learner. Every teacher should become a self-learner who will be able to explore on their own. They have to really explore on their own and then keep learning. So CIET is conducting a regular webinar on daily basis from 4 to 5. Please do join, and also join the online training that's happening every month at the last week of the month. So this month we have online training on Diksha. So please continuously join these sessions. All these are through YouTube official channel of NCERT, and you can also find these details in the CIET website. Let us be a lifelong learner so that we can integrate technology meaningfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And like you said, let us be lifelong learners, and I am sure our students are going to follow this mantra. Thank you so much, Indu ma'am, for being with us and for talking about course number 11 in detail to our viewers. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Namaskar.
Thank you to once again to our resource persons for being with us, and they both tried to explain you what course number 11 is all about. And tomorrow also we'll be discussing the same course but in Hindi, and the title would be शिक्षण अधिगम और मूल्यांकन में सूचना एवं संचार प्रौद्योगिकी का एकीकरण। तो इस पर बातचीत होगी कल ठीक 5:30 बजे हम फिर हाजिर होंगे, और अगर आप ये कार्यक्रम नहीं देख पाए हैं तो इसे ज़रूर देखिएगा NCERT ऑफिशियल हमारे YouTube चैनल पर। कल हम जब हाजिर होंगे तो हिंदी में बातचीत करेंगे इसी कोर्स पर, और आप अपने सवाल हमें भेज सकते हैं। बहुत सारे ज़रिए हैं, आप हमें ईमेल कर सकते हैं nishtha.ncert@ciet.nic.in पर, और चाहे तो हमें फ़ोन भी कर सकते हैं 8800440559 हमारा नंबर है। आपके प्रश्नों को लेने की कोशिश हम ज़रूर करेंगे। तब तक के लिए आप अपना ध्यान रखिए। आज के कार्यक्रम हम यहीं ख़त्म करते हैं। कल फिर आपसे मुलाकात होगी PM ई विद्या चैनल्स पर। तब तक के लिए नमस्कार।